welcome to another After Ultra review. My name is Wayne Capasillo, and today we're going to be talking about Ultra's Olympus 4s. Now, in these reviews and in this series, we're only going to be talking about shoes and gear and other things that I actually use during ultra marathon races or during training runs that were actually ultra marathon length. That, of course, is anything over 26.2 miles. I set up these reviews this way just because it's when you're full of sweat, when you're completely destroyed, and you're freaking fighting back that bonk monster. That's when these little quirks of this gear really become apparent. So let's dive right into it and let's look at the Olympus 4s from Ultra. These shoes have been out for quite a while now, but they did just release some new color schemes, so it is safe to say that we have a couple more months until they release the 4.5s. I personally have had two pairs of these shoes, and I've worn them for a combined amount of over 500 plus miles total. I've actually ran 250Ks in them, 250 milers in them, and 60 miles of a 100 miler in these shoes. So it is fair to say that I know these shoes pretty well and I have a lot of experience rocking these shoes during races and in many different kind of conditions. With that, let's get into our first category, which is fit and feel. Now this would be considered, of course, a maximal shoe with this 33 millimeter stack all throughout, but it's not so bad like you're wearing a platform shoe or like you're wearing high heels. You can really kind of feel the weight of the stack when you first initially put them on, but it's not so bad that it's over cumbersome or it feels like you're wearing blocks on your feet. Of course, the weight of the shoe makes a lot more sense when you actually start running on trails or you're like 50 miles into an actual ultra marathon where you can get the soft ride and what they're actually made for. And that's just a smooth, easy ride on the actual trails. So it's kind of a payoff. You have to sacrifice some of the weight and some of the mobility of a shoe to get that soft ride and all that protection from this 33 millimeter stack. During the Mount Sparta 24-hour race, I was running in the Ultra, I don't know if you guys can see that, the Ultra Superior 5s, which have about a 24 millimeter stack, 24 to 25 millimeter stack. And I switched my shoes probably around the 14-hour mark into these Olympus 4s, and it was a world of difference. It was pretty much like putting on clouds on my feet when my legs were complete jello tubes and it was just all swollen and beat up. And then I put on these shoes and it felt so much better that I could actually start running again and start moving a lot better with a lot better grip and a lot better protection with this 33 millimeter stack. So the Olympus 4s are an amazing shoe for rough trails and long distances to help better distribute and absorb some of that pounding from running. Now, I've always recommended the Olympus 4s to anyone looking for a good trail shoe, but during the Midstate Massive 100, a couple corks really popped out and I had to switch my shoes at mile 60. I think it was around mile 57 to mile 60. The biggest issue I had with the Olympus 4s was the tongue and lace combo. This tongue on the shoe is so ridiculously thin, and it's only padded in a couple of areas, and the laces are just so thin and flat that when you really start cinching them down, they start cutting on the top of your foot. It really isn't an issue for any runs under like 30 miles, but during the 100 miler, it was cutting into the top of my foot so bad that after the race, the top of my foot was actually bruised and slightly cut. That tongue and the laces issues were only exacerbated by really bad heel lifting. Once again, I never really had issues with heel lifting until the 100 miler. Again, this is exactly why I set up these reviews to be after ultras, because these little issues become big problems around that mile 60 and beyond mark. So I'm not sure if it was the constant pounding and loosening of the shell in the shoe, or maybe I actually just became more aware of it because my feet were slightly swollen and my legs were all beat up. But man, my heel was really dancing around in there. And the only way to really mitigate that issue was to really lock down the heel with a runner's knot, but that caused more pressure on the top of my foot. So it was kind of a lose-lose. I still love these shoes and how they feel so much that I might try to add some like padding or something to the actual tongue and maybe swap out these laces. Before the 100 miler, I probably would have given the Olympus 4s a perfect 5 out of 5 score, but due to these issues and basically being forced to change my shoes at mile 60, I have to give these still a solid score of 4 out of 5. Moving on to usability, the Olympus 4s are an amazing trail shoe with some of the best grip and protection I've ever used in a trail shoe before. You basically become Spider-Man on the trails, and this color scheme is really fitting just because the red and the black, of course. Now, that includes any weather conditions, including snow and rain. These Ultra Olympus 4s with their Vibram Mega Grip outsole are so good at gripping. I really wish that Ultra would just make a deal with Vibram and pretty much put this grip and this outsole on all their shoes or all their trail shoes because it works so good. I would pay so much money if they would put this Mega Grip on the Superior 5s just because I love how those shoes feel, but the grip is pretty much terrible on those. Um, Anyways, on top of the grip, the foam is thick enough to protect your feet on any trail type or any trail conditions that you might find yourself on. I've worn these shoes on legit mountain climbs, flat dirt roads, and rooty single track trails with no problem. Also, with that high 33 millimeter stack again, you can get away with running on the road with these shoes. I probably personally wouldn't do it, but during the M2M 55 miler, I saw many runners running in these Olympus 4s for 30 miles plus on the road with no issue. The only problem I really see running on the road with these shoes again is probably the weight. I personally would much rather rock a lighter shoe on the road, but it can be done. So for anything under 50 miles and on trails, I would probably give this guy a 5 out of 5 for usability. But again, due to my issues on the back half of the 100 miler, I have to give this guy a 4.5 out of 5. Let's roll right into our last and final category, which is durability. Now, I've heard a lot of people going back and forth about the durability of Ultras, but these Olympus 4s are absolute beasts. I have well over 300 plus miles in this shoe or in this pair of shoes, in this red pair of shoes, and they have no real bad significant damage. I've ran this pair of shoes into the freaking ground through snow, rain, up mountains, on loose gravel roads, pretty much any condition that you could possibly think of. The tread, of course, has some wear and tear, especially in the middle of the foot where it's a little bit squishier, but it doesn't seem to affect the performance that much. There is some little separation from the rubber where the upper and the stack actually connect. But other than that, these bad boys have been holding up pretty well. Even the immense amount of foam on this 33 millimeter stack doesn't have any really bad visible cuts or tears. There's no real compression of the actual foam or anything crazy like that. We still have this sweet, sweet protection for that glorious soft ride, even after 300 miles plus of wearing and pounding and pretty much destroying, completely submerging these shoes in water, destroying them over and over and over again, drying them out, putting them out into the sun to dry out, everything. I threw these puppies through the freaking ringer and I still wear them after those 300 plus miles of rough usage. So durability, I'm going to give our first 5 out of 5. So there we have it. The Olympus 4s are coming in with a great score of 13.5 out of 15. These shoes have carried me through a lot of ultra marathons and they continue to carry me as I train up for the next one. I'm hoping Ultra does something about the tongue and the laces, because if they do, these puppies might actually get a perfect freaking score. Now, remember, shoes and gear and nutrition are so different for everyone. People's feet, bodies, biomechanics, their stomachs, everything is so different that what may work for me might be the worst possible thing that you have ever tried. So please do your research, try this gear out, and make sure that you really understand this gear before you go out and run ultras in them. But if you want a smooth ride in the mountains and grip to rocks like freaking Spider-Man, I highly recommend giving the Olympus 4s a shot. So there we have it. Let's get out, let's train, let's chip away and kick some. Let's go.